Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Alan. I really appreciate that introduction that you gave to me. And it's just a pleasure to be here with the fellowship again here on this Sunday, the 12th of September. It was almost a year ago when I spoke with you last, Sunday, September 20th of 2020. And if I had were there in person with you to participate in your water ceremony, I would have brought with me some water from Lake Michigan, because over the last 4 or 5 days, Cindy and I have been at a place called Nordhaus Dunes along the shores of Lake Michigan between Manistee and Ludington and on the west side of the state, and just a beautiful place. So imagine that I'm bringing some water from Lake Michigan with you. I guess I want to start with a couple of definitions. And also a statement of gratitude that it really does feel good to be here with you folks. So 2 definitions. One is to look at what is travel. And one definition is to say that travel is to physically move from one place to another place. And in part, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Another definition of travel is to move through life in a manner that is pleasing and, in my opinion, of service to others, and that is to travel in a spiritual way. So the topic of today's presentation is that travel as spiritual endeavor. We define travel a little bit. Now let's take a look at what is spirituality. Well, for that definition, I did some online research, and I found something called the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. And in this regard, I'm identifying Holy Spirit as synonymous or comparable to the universal energy within the Unitarian Universalist tradition. This definition of spirituality is based on the writings of early Christian writers. And they come up with a few terms that apply to this definition. One is wisdom, another is understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, piety, and fear of the Lord. Now, some of these terms are not what we would use today. They're quite antiquated, but I'll explain a little bit about that. Wisdom is our blending of intellect and will, and this relates to our charity toward other people. Understanding is our ability to relate to all truths of our supernatural purpose, and this relates to faith. Counsel is our supernatural intuition that enables us to discern promptly and rightly, especially in difficult situations. And this relates to prudence. Fortitude is our courage, as well as the endurance to persevere. Knowledge is our ability, as far as humanly possible, to see the vast perspective of universal energy. And this relates to fairness and justice for all creatures. Piety is one of those words that's not really common in usage today anymore, but it is our ability to recognize our oneness with the universal energy and to be with that universal energy in a state of humility, trust, and love. And then the final definition or example is fear of the Lord. Now, this is definitely an antiquated term, but according to the early Christian writers, fear in this sense is our awareness and our awe of the divine magnitude and expansiveness of the universal energy. And that universal energy has the power to lead us through troubled times as well as good times. So fear is like the word awful, which today also has a negative. Awful today, oh my gosh, you know. But awful comes from the phrase to be full of awe. And when we consider the power of the divine universal energy, we are in awe, or full of awe, or historically. So that's some definitions about spirituality that we can apply today. In regard to training it as a spiritual endeavor, well, I think it's to venture out and expand our horizons. I believe that travel gives us the opportunity to connect with the universal energy in new and exciting ways. And that's why travel is a spiritual endeavor. Travelers gather experiences and stories, but it's important to realize that travelers also need an audience. and then the storytellers need an audience. The travelers, and especially the storyteller travelers like myself, need people who are rooted, people who are to be admired for finding their spirituality within a constant, loving community, like you have with the Unitarian Fellowship, Unitarian Universalist Fellowship there in Sarnia. Both travel and being stationary are spiritual endeavors, and both are beneficial. They're necessary, and they're even symbiotic. So church is a good example of a rooted community in which I can come to you, like I am today, to roost for a while and relate stories, even if we're meeting by way of Zoom. Another example of travel as a spiritual endeavor doesn't really mean that we have to go all that far. Yesterday, my partner Cindy and I helped my daughter Mandy and her husband Brandon with a very big project. They have a cabin 30 miles north of where we are right now in White Cloud, Michigan. And there was a terrible windstorm that came through there this past week. And on Thursday, when they went up to the cabin, they said that from the road, they could not even see the cabin because of the downed trees, the oak trees with all of their leaves that had been topped off by the windstorm. So we invested 4 hours with them yesterday to help them clean up the brush and cut the pieces of the log into little pieces and then split it up into smaller pieces. And so there we are helping family. We traveled 30 minutes in order to do that. And I consider that to be a spiritual endeavor also. Cindy and I have been traveling around the country since of 2019. And we own a pickup truck and a travel trailer. And we've seen just beautiful places. We've come to have great appreciation for the beauty that we find in God's creation. We've camped primarily in national forests and state parks, not commercial RV parks for the most part. We've driven primarily on secondary roads, which fortunately do not have as many billboards or no billboards, which is wonderful. We've stayed with friends and Cindy's daughter and cousin. We've been to some beautiful places. I consider Death Valley to be a place of spirituality that definitely rises above the name Death Valley. It really is a beautiful place. Taking a little canoe trip on the Rio Grande River, we pulled over on the Mexican Sunday and helped some Mexican stones skip across the river to the American side. So there's some illegal alien over there, according to what some people would say. But we like to skip stones. That was a fun thing to do. Last Thanksgiving in Louisville, Kentucky, we helped feed about 10,000 people. This is their breakfast. Cindy cooked a lot of bacon. I cooked a lot of sausage. And that was a spiritual endeavor also. And there's just many, many places that we have gone. In fact, the last time I spoke to the fellowship a year ago, it was basically a bit of a travelogue about the many places we have been throughout the United States. So that's, I have just mentioned a few examples as places that I think were really I would consider them to be a spiritual endeavor. Our abode is only a 21-foot travel trailer. It has no push-ups. It's pretty small. It's 168 square feet. To give you an idea of what that's like, it's possible to stand in the center hallway and have one hand in the kitchen sink and the other hand in the bathroom sink. There's only 2 steps between the kitchen stove and the dining room table. So, finding cooperation and respect while living in a trailer of 168 square feet involves a certain level of spirituality. I see the good in you as you see the good in me comes into play quite often in our daily lives. Spirituality, I think, also involves some flexibility, and we've had to experience that, especially in regard to the coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic. Last January and February as we were dancing in Florida and camping near New Orleans, and then the COVID pandemic really started to box us in. We ended up home in Arizona for the summer, and here's where some divine guidance really came into play also, where the Holy Spirit came to us in another way. It's ill. She was afflicted with a disease called necrotizing pancreatitis. It hit her on June 20th of 2021. And fortunately, we were in a good place, that home that is. If we had been in the travel trailer, then her recovery would have been much more limited. But in the home, she had some space to walk around and get some exercise without going out into the hot Arizona heat that is typical of the summers there in Arizona. So gratitude is also a part of our story, and gratitude not only for having that place of recovery, but gratitude for the fact that Cindy's recovery is now complete. She's back at full health and eating well and some weight that she lost. And so we're grateful for that part of our travel also. Spirituality also comes into play as we travel, because when we travel, we have this opportunity to interact with other people, especially people with a broad range of viewpoints regarding religion and politics, COVID vaccinations, and other issues. And spirituality helps us to interact positively with those folks. And this is where practicing those 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit that I defined earlier comes into play. With that, I'm going to share my screen and show a couple of images here from a PowerPoint presentation. And there's an audience here. And the one on the left, well, first of all, I'll mention that when we were in an RV park in Texas, we encountered several people who had large flags in support of Donald Trump and bumper stickers in support of Donald Trump. So Cindy and I decided to make a statement ourselves. We flew our Earth flag, which is a 3-foot by 5-foot banner from a clothesline that we strung between two trees. And we also purchased some of these garden flags, like the 12-inch by 18-inch garden flags. And these are 2 of the ones that we flew on little standards. The one on the left says, "Imagine all the people living life in peace," so the message from John Lennon. And the one on the right has the words hope, love, equality, inclusion, kindness, and vertically in a separate color, peace. And another pair of flags that we flew was the one on the right is the image of hands of different skin colors there, showing that we need all people to work together to create the circle of humanity. The one on the left has the words love is love, women's rights are human rights, no human is illegal, kindness is everything, Black Lives Matter, science is real. And one day, one of the women came by and she says, "What does this flag mean? I don't understand it." She said, like, "No human is illegal. What do you mean by that?" And so I explained to her that according to some people, the immigrants who are coming from Central America and Mexico and crossing the US southern border are considered to be illegal immigrants or illegal aliens. And that just seems to be an inhumane way of looking at people. Nobody is illegal. We are all human beings. And then she said, "Well, this love is love thing, you don't mean sex, do you?" And I thought about saying, well, now what's wrong with sex? But no, what I said to her was, no, we're talking about agape love here, about altruistic love, the Christian love of sharing all of who we are with other people. So the image, the share here, and go back to explaining some more things about what I experienced with this woman. Because she said to me eventually, "Well, you are Christian, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, I was raised in the Christian faith as a Catholic. However, I've also come to really appreciate Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism and Zoroastrianism and the various faiths around the world." And she turned and walked away. She took about 4 steps, turned around, and she says, "I'll pray for you," in not the kindest of tone. So, I could have upped the ante there a little bit. I could have, said something nasty back to her. But no, I just said, "Thank you. Thank you for praying for me." And this is one of the messages from the Holy Spirit there, the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. And that is counsel, to not push the issue, but to instead judge rightly how to control our actions at that time. There was a man there in the park. His name was Terry. He had a huge Trump flag in the lot where his motorhome was parked. And one day he needed to lift a large air conditioner to the roof of that motorhome, and I and another man helped him. So we practiced some wisdom and charity that rose above the political issue. We talked with people who don't trust the COVID vaccines, and that gave us a chance to stand firm and say to them, we know that COVID kills, and we believe that vaccinations save lives. So that was an opportunity for us to practice fortitude or courage. We dined with people who believe that the southern border wall in the United States and Mexico is necessary to save the US economy. And there's an opportunity for us to apply the knowledge of, in the universal perspective of, is it not better to love thy neighbor than to push them away? We talked with people where we had to practice acceptance and being accepted by people regardless of the different viewpoints. So there was where piety and oneness with all comes into play. We have a friend in Colorado with whom I shared quite a few emails and discussions when we were, in Arizona, when we were there for a while. And we decided to find our common ground, to seek understanding of our spiritual purpose. That is, we didn't focus on the news or the fake news of who said what or who was doing right, who was doing wrong in the political world. Instead, we focused on why. I said to him, his name is Hart. I said, Hart, why do you believe what you believe? And let me tell you why I believe what I believe. So we rose above the act of potentially finding fault with each other, and we sought understanding within each other instead. And that creates a certain level of peace within us. You know that I am a very big fan of John McConnell, the man who founded the original Earth Day. And he talked about the value of peace through understanding, to come together where we agree and leave room for our differences. And that's what Hart and I did in our discussions. Because ultimately, love is more important than politics. There's nothing in those 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit that says, thou shalt be a member of the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. Thou shalt be a member of the New Democratic Party or the Green Party or Bloc Quebeca. Jesus said, love one another. And the Beatles sang, love is all there needs, all there is. Love is all you need. So that's the main gist of what I want to say about traveling today. In regard to upcoming travels, I want to share that, as I mentioned, Cindy and I were in Arizona last summer and Texas last winter. We are in Michigan now, which is our home state. In October, we're going to be taking our truck and travel trailer toward the southern Utah national parks, places like Bryce and Zion and Kodachrome, the Four Corners area of the United States. Then we will be back in Texas near Corpus Christi for the winter. And I'm also looking into some spiritual retreats, something where I can go and find my own individuality, let's say, and looking into the practice of Buddhism to help me with that. So if you want to track me and read some of my blogs, you can go to my website. The website URL or website name is my name. It's www.robertmweir.com. Robert M as in Martin, Weir.com. Look for the orange tabs on the side of any page, and near the top one says blog sign up, the blog sign up tab. Be patient. I'm going to post some blogs for the next month or so. Then I'm going to be turning my laptop off for several weeks, and at least until December, and take a brief break from my writing. I've been working on a series of 22 ebooks that encompass my travels starting in the 1980s through Cindy's and my adventures here in 2021. They are on Amazon.com. Again, if you go to my website and sign up for my blogs, you'll see how to access them. Or you can go to Amazon.com and look for Robert M. Weir, and you can find them there. So that's what I wanted to say about this traveling this path of spirituality. And I trust that you will go where you need to go, or roost where you feel comfortable. But wherever you go, practice your spirituality and just enjoy life. It's a great life, and we have a great existence thanks to the universal energy that we all share. And that's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for being part of the congregation and the fellowship today.